My name is Steve, S-T-E-V-E, Pankey, P as in Paul, A-N-K-E-Y.
All right, so Steve, why don't we just start from the beginning?
On December 20th, 1984, I was home with my then wife and my 5-year-old son. And our car was parked in the driveway. We lived on an acre just outside of town. The car was parked in the driveway. It was packed to the max to go to California, Big Bear Lake, California, for Christmas to visit my folks. We were going to bed early. We put the little boy to bed early. We were going to bed early. We had no radios, no TVs on. I looked out the kitchen window, the front window, to see like snowfall, to make sure that our 2-wheel drive car could get out early the next morning. We're going to leave 6, 7, 8 hours later. And an unmarked sheriff's car and a pickup pulled into the driveway, turned around and left. I have a gay background. It's all over the internet. It's well known. And I had multiple problems with local law enforcement, and so I was thinking, oh no, here's coming another arbitrary charge. So they flashed their lights towards my house and towards the house next to me, and then they just turned around and left. So I thought nothing more about it. We went to bed. We got up 3 or 4 the next morning, got the little boy up, got in the car. My wife and son were sleeping as I was driving, so there was no radio on. We went to California, had a wonderful Christmas with my parents. On December 26, 1984, 6 days later, we were returning, and when we got back into in the evening time in Colorado, we heard on the news that there was a missing girl then. That was my first knowledge of it. We went home, we unpacked, we went to bed. The next day was December 27th. My father-in-law came over, and I was not on a speaking terms with my father-in-law, so I was surprised that he came there. He was groundskeeper at the cemetery, and he said that a cop had come to him and said that he had a body that needed to be buried in a casket, and that it would look bad for Steve. And when I'm listening to this, I'm thinking, this is kind of like the weirdest conversation I've ever had. So I asked him, I said, are you wearing a wire for the police department? You know, what's going on here? And he said no, and he left. So then I called my attorney. His name is Don Janklow, the attorney I had at the time. And Cy, C-Y, was his secretary, and she said Don's out of the country in Israel, so he would be back the next week. So I searched all around our acre, around the neighbor's acre where the cops had flashed the lights like a week before, and there was nothing there, you know. So I was kind of weirded out about this. Now, my father-in-law never said the name Jonelle Matthews. He never said anything about a child. He never said anything about a man, a woman, anybody. I got a copy of the newspaper, and the Jonelle Matthews thing was all over it. It was the only murder in the area that was at the time, or disappearance at the time, that was talked about. So what I did is the very next week when my attorney got back, I called him and I said, I don't know if this has anything to do with the Jonelle Matthews case or not, but I may have some information and I don't know what to do. And he said that he would be concerned about obstruction of justice, and he didn't go into any detail after that. And I owed him a lot of money, and his voice was like not real friendly about this. So I thanked him. I got off the phone. I then called the Fort Collins, because I had a bad relationship with the Greeley Police Department. I called the Fort Collins FBI. The FBI I talked to an agent named Lyons, a special agent Lyons, and he said he'd call me back the next day and tell me where we'd meet. Well, what I told Lyons on the phone is I wanted to avoid an obstruction of justice charge. I just don't want to have a problem. So the next day he called me back and he wanted me to meet him at the Greeley Police Department. So I met him there. What I told him was somebody had talked, I said I had talked to my attorney, and if you get rough with me, I'm going to lawyer up, and that'll be the end of it. But I said, I talked to my attorney. Somebody had talked to me about a body. They never mentioned the name Jonelle Matthews. They never mentioned any name. But I thought the conversation was weird, and I don't totally trust the person that said it. And I said, on sleeping on it, thinking about it, if they come to me again, I will refer them to you, and you can deal directly with them. So Special Agent Lyons then said, he just listened intently, and then right afterwards he asked me, he said, did the conversation have anything to do with Jonelle's older friends? And I said, no, I don't know anything about her friends. Then he said, was the conversation about any drug dealing in the neighborhood? And I says, I don't know anything about that neighborhood. I don't know anything about drug dealing. I don't know anything about that. And he said something about, again, like people she knew who didn't like her. And I said, I don't know any of them. I said, I know Russ Ross, who is, him and his daughter were the last ones to see her. I knew Russ very well, and I had won a national labor relations lawsuit against him. And so that was the end of it. And then a Greeley detective came in, and he was kind of like, you know, what's your story? And I said, you know, I've got a bad relationship with the Greeley Police Department. I talked to the FBI. You can talk to him and deal with that. And I left, and that was the end of it. That's the total of my knowledge about the disappearance of Jonelle Matthews, okay? That's it. There ain't nothing more. On August 19th, I voluntarily gave my DNA, and I thought that would be the end of it. I have said that I am willing to take a voice stress test. They didn't want to do that. I said I'm willing to take a polygraph test. They don't want to do that. I flat don't know anything, and when I have been talked to about this, nobody seems to want to know or hear anything bad that a cop might be involved in it, okay? I mean, I used to be youth pastor at Sunnyview Church of the Nazarene, where the Matthews family went, so I knew their trusted adults. My then 5-year-old, I didn't want him there from some of the things that I knew about them. So I have all along, I've had suspicions. Now, suspicions aren't facts. It's just suspicion. My suspicion is that there was a confrontation with a trusted adult. It ended in injury, death, whatever. And I think under the circumstances, because there were some close relationships between the police, there was a city worker going to the church and all, that there was some I don't know.
Were Jonelle's parents, what did they do for work?
According to the news media, her father was a principal of a middle school.
Okay. Do you know what the mom did?
I don't know. I've never met them. I've never talked to them. I've never seen them. I've never any of that. I don't know them.
Now, you said at the time you were a youth minister at that church,
right,
where they did go.
Right.
Was Jonelle in your group that you
No,
ministered?
no,
okay.
no. In 1977, now you have to keep in mind that I had left the gay lifestyle when I got kicked out of the Army in 1976. And so then I repented for that, and I became the youth pastor. A girl, I was 26, a 23-year-old woman in the church who was single, her and I were dating. She was in the choir, she played the piano. We were having sex together. She got pregnant. She went to England and had an abortion. And she came back like a month later, and or 6 weeks later, and she and I had sex again, and I told her I was going to tell the church that she got an abortion, without asking me. And the next thing, I was arrested for date rape, and that was dismissed, okay? Because, frankly, it was consensual. So that was 1977. So when you're a youth pastor and you get accused of date rape, I'll tell you, you're no longer youth pastor and you're not wanted in that church. So I was out of there. It was according to online information given by Jim Matthews, the father, or the stepfather. He said they started going there in 1978, so they were a year after me. I have never met any of the Matthews family. Never talked to them.
Gotcha.
So.
And now, you said you had a bad relationship with the Greeley Police Department. How come?
Well, I was charged with, and I can't remember all of them, I was charged with 20 misdemeanors that I'd counted up at one time, and one felony, which is date rape, okay? That's a very serious charge. I would rather be accused of murdering a man than raping a woman, okay? So, of the 20 charges, who was a credit union manager who was gay, who is a friend of mine, okay, I'll put it that way. He was a friend of mine, and he accused me of harassing him, so that went to a jury trial. My aunt accused me of making phone calls to her, harassing phone calls. That went to a jury trial. And, I was charged with driving 60 miles an hour in a 25 zone, which was a misdemeanor. All three of those went to jury trials. All three times the jury heard the evidence, picked a foreman, and then ruled me not guilty within 45 minutes on all three of them, okay? I mean, it was, I had been told things like, once a queer, always a queer. You have to keep in mind, sir, this is before your time, okay? It was different then. So.
And then, so in 1983, can I ask, what were you doing for work?
1983?
When Jonelle went missing, right? 1984, sorry.
What was I doing for work?
Yeah, you weren't the youth pastor anymore. You said you left after
No,
the date with
I
the
had
charge.
a wholesale dealer's used car license. And it was winding down. It was going to be like at the end of the year in December it would expire. I wasn't, so I only had one car left. And that was another part of this. I was driving on a dealer tag. So I crossed multiple states on a dealer tag. So the car was subject to confiscation, you know. So, I mean, I was watching my P's and Q's. I wasn't looking for any problem with law enforcement. So.
And so you went and talked with the FBI in Fort Collins.
No, the Fort Collins came to the Greeley Police Department.
Came to the Greeley Police Department. You talked with Special Agent Lyons, told them your story, told them what you knew. And then
Which was very little,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah, and then after that, when was the next time you heard about this case where you were brought in again by law enforcement?
When I, in 1989, we moved, I was married at the time, we moved to Ketchum, Idaho, and then Shoshone, Idaho. And in Shoshone, I joined the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I had a rocky marriage, and when they were talking about families live forever, it sounded really good to me. And when I got the ordination and was baptized and all of that, the bishop asked me if there was anything I wanted to confess, if there was anything like bothering me that I needed to get off my chest. And I said, yeah, back when I lived in Colorado, this girl disappeared, and I had this weird conversation about it, and it bothered me. And so anyway, the bishop then told the stake president, which is in Cary, and there was a lieutenant with the Sun Valley Police Department who was also in the Cary stake thing. So the stake president, the then stake president, contacted me. This would have been 92, 93, I'm guessing right in there, and said, you know, if you've had a conversation with somebody about a missing person, you know, we'd like for you to talk to Lieutenant Mark Lockwood. So I talked to him, and I told him, you know, that I was concerned. And what I said is I had this conversation, and it was weird. And every now and then, like, I'd call somebody in Greeley and check, because when I left Agent Lyons, I thought, you know, because I slept really good, because I thought, you know, if this was kids that did this to another kid, kids crack real easy, and this was going to be solved. And it just bothered me that it wasn't solved. And so I talked to him, and he got a hold of the Greeley Police Department, got the whole file on it, and he had like this huge file thing the next time he talked to me. And then it went from, it was either, his attitude is either I'm crazy and I'm wanting attention and I made up the whole thing, or I did it. And I'm, whoa, what are you talking about? You know, I had a conversation, that's it.
So then, when you know, an officer from Greeley knocked on your door here in Twin Falls with a Twin Falls deputy, was that, did that surprise you? Did that shock you?
Yeah. On, we had had conversations before that. On April 8th, he called my and talked to my sister-in-law in Arizona.
Who's he?
Well, Detective Cash,
Okay.
with the Greeley Police Department. And he just out of the blue said that he's got this case of this missing Jonelle Matthews, and Steve Pankey's name's all over it. Is he mentally ill, to her? And she's like, what? So she gave the phone to my brother, who's an ex San Bernardino County deputy sheriff, and said the same thing to him. And he said, you know, my brother has no mental problems. He's eccentric, but he's not crazy. So then my brother naturally called me. I mean, any relative would do that. And so I called the Greeley Police. I looked it up on the website, their number. I called the Greeley Police Station. I left a voicemail message for Detective Cash. And what I said is, you know, my family has a long history of homosexuals and hellfire brimstone Baptists. And back in 1946, I had an uncle that was arrested on a consensual homosexual charge who was killed in police custody, okay? This is my family is very divided on this, okay? And dealing with my past and everything. And I said, just please don't contact my family. So about 2 hours later, I got a call and it was from the district attorney's office in Weld County, which is the seat of Greeley. And it hung up. So I called the number back, and the lady answered district attorney's office. And I hung up. Then the same number called me back again, and it was Detective Cash. And it was obvious that I was on voice box and that other people were in the room and all, and I could hear like papers shuffling and papers being passed and all. And he asked me about it, and I said, you know, I don't know anything. And he asked me about my relationship with Russ Ross, and I said, you know, it was a very bad relationship with Russ Ross. And but that was, I don't know, 1978, 79. It was years before then. And he said that he wanted to come here to Twin Falls and interview me and talk to me about Russell Ross and the people in the church. And I said, you know, without a lawyer present, I'm not, you know, you guys charge me with date rape, you charge me with 20 misdemeanors. You're scary people. I have a homosexual background, I admit it, okay? I'm not going to talk to you without an attorney present. So he then called my attorney, and they did some back and forth, and my attorney said, you know, we're going to have some ground rules here and all that stuff, and they didn't, and Greeley Police Department wouldn't go along with that. And so then that was the end of that.
And when was all that?
That was April 8th.
Of this year?
Yeah, of this year. Then it was, I think it was August 16th, or August 15th. August 15th, all of a sudden on my intercom I get a call, and on my intercom somebody's at the front door, and I'm waiting, letting him go by.
Yeah.
So, I get a call on the intercom. I answer it and I say hello, and he says, "Steve Pankey?" And I say, "Yes." He says, "Detective Cash." And I said, "Are you at my front door?" And he said, "Yes." And I was surprised, because I said to him, "You know, you were told not to talk to me." I thought that, it's my ignorance, but I thought that they couldn't talk to me if the police, I thought the police couldn't talk to me if they were told to talk to my attorney. And he said he wanted to talk to me. And so I said, "Who all's with you?" And he said, Detective Mike Prill is with him. Now, these are both Greeley. It was not a Twin Falls. No Twin Falls, no detective has ever talked to me except John Dobner, who's the former Greeley Police Department chief. So
So what did you say to him when he said he wanted to talk to you, and when he told you who else was with him?
I said I'm going to call my attorney and ask him. So I called my attorney, got him on the phone. He said don't talk to him. So I said to my attorney, "You tell him that." So I came down here. Detective Cash is sitting right where I'm sitting. Mike Prill is standing about where you are. And I come up here, and it's like I handed the phone to Cash, and Cash talked to him, and Cash told him, "What law says I can't talk to whoever I want to talk to, you know?" And so he handed the phone back to me, and Mike Prill got real close to me and said, "We need to talk to you." And it was like intimidating. It was like that old school good cop, bad cop. Cash was sitting here, and it was like, this is the first time he'd ever seen me in person. So it's like he was studying me. He was just like reading me, just checking me out, you know. And Prill was like, his card said that he was a gang, a gang detective or something. And like he gets like, he's standing about where you are and I'm standing about there, and he gets like right in my face and says he needs to talk to me. And I said, "Please don't contact my relatives anymore, you know. I talked about my uncle and being killed, and I don't want to get into this, you know. So if you have anything to say to me, talk to my attorney." And Prill gets right in my face, and he starts spitting, like he says, "Steve, I need to talk to you right now." And it's like really arrogant, okay, like a barroom brawler. And it's like, you know, and they had said they wanted to sit down in my living room or here, and I'm like, you know, sure as heck not going to bring you into my living room with you spitting on me. And so it was like, and so I said, "You know, you can work out a deal with my attorney." And Prill gets right in my face, and he says, "If you need a deal, then you did it," like that. And I just said, "I'm not talking to you anymore," and I turned around and walked away. Well, I told my attorney about that, and I thought about it over the weekend, and on August 19th, which I think was a Monday, I called the Twin Falls Police State department, and I said, can I just, because I had said to Detective Cash, I'd be willing to take a lie detector test, I'd be willing to take a voice stress test. So on the 19th, I called the Greeley Police Department, or the Twin Falls Police Department, offered to give my DNA, and then Detective Dobner said that he was the one that the Greeley Police, and he said, you want to volunteer? And I said, yeah, I think that we'll save Idaho taxpayers, Greeley, Colorado taxpayers a lot of money if I just give my DNA. I said to him, I said, are you recording this? And he said, yes. And I said, aren't most cold cases solved these days through DNA? And I said, well, if I give my DNA, you can put it in CODIS and we're done with it. So I came down there and I gave Dobner my DNA. He swabbed my mouth on both sides. He says, you're free to go, and I left. So I was thinking, this was on August 19th. So I was thinking, this is the end of it, there'll be no more. Then on September 4th, about 9:30 in the morning, I get a call from Dobner, and he said, when you gave me your DNA, there was some paperwork I should have done that I didn't do. And I said, what? And so I said to him, do you have an ulterior motive here? What's going on, you know? And he said, no, I need you to come down and be down here by 10 o'clock. And this is 9:30. Be down here by 10 o'clock and just do the paperwork. So I said again, do you have an ulterior motive? And his voice went up again, kind of a second time when he said no, you know. So I said, well, I'm going to shave and shower. I'll be there between 10:30 and 11. So I shaved, showered, and called my attorney when I was leaving and was heading that way. And my attorney said, don't go to their office, come to my office. And if Dobner has paperwork for you to do, let him do it at my office. So I pull in to my attorney's office, and two unmarked minivans pull in, and cops come out with full SWAT team rifles and all this stuff, and they're standing there pointing at me. And so I was standing right by my car door. I just want to show you. So I'm just standing there and I'm looking at them because, I mean, this was total shock and all. Okay. I mean, if they wanted to catch me off guard, they succeeded. So I'm standing there and the cop says, do you have any guns on you? And I said, no. So he said, can we search you? So I turn around and I said, sure. He searches me, nothing there. He asks for my cell phone, I give him my cell phone. He asks for my car keys, I give him my car keys. Then he hands me a warrant for my phones and my computer and all. And then that he's got a search warrant he gave me. He gave me 2 pieces of paper. And so I gave him codes to get into my place, and they searched it. They took the CD discs from my son's funeral. They took papers, they took pictures of my family. They took my tax things. They took stuff that has absolutely nothing to do with. And I told them the only 2 things that I own today that I had when I lived in Greeley was my Social Security card and a dull letter opener. That's the only 2 things that I have from there. They took a lot of stuff, you know. And I guess I'm amazed because why don't they just do the easy way? Why don't they serve me with grand jury testimony With today's technology, they can have a grand jury impaneled in Greeley, Colorado. At the Twin Falls County Courthouse, I can appear there, and over a screen I can be under oath answering all the questions they want. I don't understand why this little Hitler type way of dealing with it, why they're doing this, okay? I mean, you're talking about a 68-year-old man with trifocals, and you got all these police coming at him. You know, if they're trying to make me feel easy to talk about it, why don't they? This isn't the way to do it. I've been told, I don't know this, but I've been told that there are 300,000 missing kids in the United States, okay? If that's true, if these are the police methods that they're using, no wonder they're not caught, okay? And the one thing is that nobody seems to want to know about is what I was told by my father-in-law, that it was a cop who came to him, okay? I didn't ask him which one and all of that stuff, but there were city employees in the church that she went to, okay? Another thing that bothers me, this was 1984, and I can tell you from my personal background, homophobia and racial prejudice, the two go hand in hand. Jonelle Matthews was adopted. She was biologically Hispanic. Why don't they have why doesn't the Greeley Police Department have Hispanic detectives? Why don't they have a Hispanic detective do it, you know? I have said when I've been contacted, why isn't the United States Attorney for the District of Colorado not checking this out, okay? It's the one thing that nobody wants to talk about, that a cop could be. I'm not accusing the cop of doing whatever caused her demise. I'm saying that I think under the circumstances back then that a cop could have been involved in it, okay? They lied a lot to me. Okay, I've talked a lot.
Yeah. What made you go public to, I mean, I heard that you approached the Statesman. What made you go public with this?
Because, well, there are several reasons. One is, like, if this is the way missing and exploited children are handled, okay? It's not the way to win friends and influence people, and no wonder there's a whole lot of them aren't resolved, okay? So I think there needs to be a national conversation about that. Number two, I didn't know Jonelle Matthews existed or disappeared until 6 days after the fact, okay? And any information I have, which is just simply one conversation, it revolves around a cop. Nobody seems to want to know anything about what a cop does. You know, you don't cross the blue line. So if Judge, whatever the judge's name who signed this, okay, you know, I've never seen the affidavit that they have. I think it's probably baloney, but they won't give me that. They won't give it to my attorney. But what I'm getting at is if the only knowledge that I have, if I have any knowledge, which may be nothing to do with anything, is that a cop is involved. And that's the thing that if I were ending up in if they can get a search warrant, they can get an arrest warrant, okay? And if they had me in Blaine County Jail, or Weld County Jail there, you know, and if all of a sudden I was strangled to death or something like that, you know, the truth to get out. So I don't know.
And then you, at least, you know, it looks as if it was you, that's commented on a few stories online.
Right.
The Greeley Tribune story, as well as another one.
Read the comments.
One of the comments was "Who?" ? Why ?
Yeah.
And then another comment was, "Without a deal, this may never be resolved."
Right.
And what did you mean? What did you mean by "without a deal, this may never be resolved"?
Just that. Without a deal, it may never be resolved.
What kind of deal would you be looking for?
Well, not necessarily for me.
Okay.
I mean, it is. My son was murdered in 2008. A deal was made to avoid a jury trial. And that's how it's done. Deals are done all the time. So if you read all those comments, I did say who, why. And you have to keep in mind, I've had a child murdered. And when they're talking about this whole rigmarole, this whole mess, when I had the conversation with my father-in-law, I've always wondered about it, okay? I don't know. That's why I went to the FBI agent. So if you look at those comments that I made online, I also said that I think that the United States Attorney for the District of Colorado needs to get involved in this.
And what made you comment on those stories?
Because I think it needs to be resolved. I think it does. I was fortunate when my son was murdered. We know who did it. We know what happened and all of that stuff.
And then can you tell me why you want it to be resolved?
So it's resolved. So it's over with. So that family has the same closure that I have. Okay, that's.
And also, I mean, talk about wouldn't you like it resolved to maybe have your name cleared, or?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, without a doubt.
Because at this time, did they tell you that you're just a person of interest, Greeley police, or that you're their prime suspect? Have they told you any of this, or?
They haven't said that. They have acted very strange, which I guess one of the reasons that I contacted the Idaho Statesman is you know, you look at cases, and when a SWAT team goes in and searches somebody's house, eventually it ends up in the news media, okay? And there's two issues that go on. There's a court battle, but there's a public perception battle. So you hear these people all the time, their place has been searched. The police say, well, they're a person of interest, they're a suspect, they're this or that. And the police say no, or the suspect, the person of interest, says no comment, no nothing, you know, won't talk to you. They look guilty, okay? So I think I think if I simply state the truth, and I didn't know she existed or disappeared until 6 days after the fact. Once that's established, okay, I had this short conversation. Now, if, you know, I would like to have my name cleared, yeah. They've got all of this stuff. They have really screwed up my life by taking all of that stuff. I don't think they're going to find anything, but I think they're going to leave this shadow of this appearance of evil with me. You know, am I going to go to church and people are going to hide their kids? Am I going to, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
There are easier ways to do this. Impanel a grand jury, put me under oath, ask me questions, be done with it. They've got my DNA. Give me a polygraph test. Give me a voice stress test. I mean,
Have you heard from Greeley police since they searched your condo here?
I haven't heard anything from them.
They haven't tried calling you, or you haven't heard anything from your lawyer?
No.
Gotcha. All right, well, unless there's anything else that you wanted to say, that should be it.
I would like the United States Attorney for the District of Colorado. I would like a special prosecutor to be involved to look at the whole gamut of possibilities, not just focusing on me. Thank you.
Thank you. I guess one last thing. Did you hear earlier this summer that her body was exhumed, or found, I should say?
Yes.
Northern.
Yes, I saw that online. That's a totally legal thing to do, is look online.
Yeah.
When a Greeley cops come to you and accuse you of, or want to talk to you about this, it's a pretty prudent thing to go online and check on what's the updates. So.
What was your reaction when you saw that they had found her body?
Oh, I felt great. I thought, I was happy for the Matthews family. They at least, because there was a lot of initial talk. There was a lot of initial talk in the beginning about like possible, what do you call it, trafficking or something like that maybe she would have been forced into prostitution or something like that. I mean, when you're a parent and you know what happened to your murdered child, like me, that's bad enough, okay? You live with it the rest of your life. But if you have a young girl and you got these rumors going out there, possible forced into, I mean, that would be a horrible thing for the Matthews to live with. It's a horrible thing for anybody to think about that. So at least they know, I mean, they know for sure that she's gone, and they've got her remains. They've buried her with dignity in a cemetery. So I am very happy for her. That's when I did the who, why, because, you know, I think getting the United States Attorney involved in here. You know, when you're talking about making deals, my relationship with the Greeley police is, it's just in your face all the time, okay? It's either you're crazy and you, I mean, from up here, from my Idaho side, you know, it's either you're crazy or you did it. I mean, it's just two polar opposites. that's not the way it is, and so
What year did you move away from Colorado? Did you leave?
I left in, I believe it was late 1986 or early 1987.
And that's when you moved to Ketchum, you said, I believe?
No,
Okay.
no. We moved, my then wife was pregnant with our second son, Carl, who was murdered later. But we moved to South Texas. Then we moved to Big Bear Lake, California. Then we moved to Portland, Oregon. Then we moved to Ketchum.
And when did you move to Twin Falls?
Uh, 2016.
All right, Steve. Well, that should do it, unless, like I said, unless there's anything else you'd like to say.
I think we've talked quite a bit, sir.
I think so.